All right. Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. And this is a very special episode. This is actually our anniversary episode. We've been doing this for a year now. Actually, just about a week ago would have been our year, and it just didn't really line up. But we've got some big things planned. We've got a very special guest with us today. Fans of the show have been listening since day one. You'll definitely recognize this person. We've got Xavier back. He's
Hello.
back doing a guest spot. How are you doing, Xavier?
I'm doing pretty well. Work's going well. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
And of course, as always, I've got David Delgado, aka Double D. How are you doing, David?
I'm a little sleepy, Mike. This time change is definitely messing with me.
Yes, sons of bitches, fucking making us change our time. A bunch of people were late at my work today because of it.
I had a couple people come in late as well.
You were late today?
No, I had a couple people come in late. Listen,
Oh.
Mike, gosh.
I'm sorry, bud. All right, well, maybe this will take your time off of it, or your mind off of it. We'll talk about some great movies, and maybe it'll make you forget your woes of the day. But before we do that, I do want to just talk about a few things. We were hoping to have Dustin on. He is going to record us a little special message for the fans of the show, but he did just have, his wife just had a baby, and his wife desperately needed sleep today, so he's up watching the baby, so unfortunately he couldn't get on. So that's unfortunate, but he will be giving us some words of wisdom that I will be putting on this episode. And then I just want to give Xavier a chance to kind of talk about what he's been up to for the last few months since he left the show. He's been doing some really interesting things at both work and then creatively. So Xavier, if there's anything you want to talk about, go ahead, bud.
Oh, oof. Well, I mean, I'm hard at work on big video game that's coming out later this year. It's Spider-Man for the PS4.
Oh,
it's pretty
snap.
exciting.
That is
Pretty cool.
exciting.
That looks great.
Yeah, it's turning out really well. We're actually doing a big company-wide playtest over the next couple days just to iron out some bugs and that type of thing. So that should be pretty neat. As far as like just personal work and stuff, I've been playing a lot of D&D actually.
Yeah.
I've been realizing just how much of a nerd I am. So over the past I don't know, several months, almost a year, I've been putting together like online D&D games for various game developers. So that's been a lot of fun. I actually also did a charity stream a few weeks ago with some folks that I know online. They're a pretty diverse group of people, game developers, people who do streaming and that type of thing. And we just did it as kind of like they were doing a 24-hour stream, and I ran a one-shot of D&D for them. So that was a lot of fun. The project that I'm running, where I play games with these game developers, is called Dungeons and Devs. You can find it on Twitter. So just search for Dungeons and Devs and you'll find it. If you're in game development, I'd be happy to have you on. Just send an email when you check it out on Twitter. But other than that,
So,
that's me.
It's pretty fun. Xavier really gets into D&D, does some crazy voice, does some elaborate maps and everything. It's pretty great. I will link his Twitter and the website, the YouTube, everything that he has for it in the description of this episode. So if you guys are interested and you want to check out what Xavier's been doing, by all means, check it out. Everything will linked below. But I think it's time to get into the topic at hand. This is our 1-year anniversary episode, so we wanted to do something pretty big and something near and dear to our hearts. So we decided to do Ninja Turtles. Which I think is a big deal. It was a big part of my childhood.
Not
How
just
did you guys
any
feel about
Ninja
Turtles?
man. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's very true. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is pretty interesting for me because when I was like maybe pre-13, 14, my mom actually wouldn't let me watch any of the like cartoons or anything because she's hyper religious, and she was like, they're monsters. So this was a very illuminating thing for me. I had seen the Ninja Turtles movies when I was a kid, but only when I was out of the house, so it was like this weird forbidden thing. So I'm interested in talking about it today.
Cool.
What about you, Double D? How important were they to you?
I mean, so this came out in 1990. I was born in 89, so it was actually my brother's real movie. Like, my brother was super into it, but I got all the hand-me-downs, so I got all his Ninja Turtle toys, and that really got me into Ninja Turtles, so I've always been a fan of Ninja Turtles ever since I was growing up.
Yeah, me too. Ninja Turtles was a big part of my childhood. So I was born in 88, but I had this movie and the other two movies from the original trilogy on VHS, and I watched them constantly. And I also had my mom used to record all the cartoons from the Saturday morning version onto like a VHS. So I had like dozens of episodes. I had a bunch of toys for it. I was super into Ninja Turtles. This was a really big part of my childhood. So I'm really excited to be talking about it. I've been wanting to do Ninja Turtles since day one from the podcast. So I'm glad that we're doing it, and I'm glad that we're doing this on a big episode. I'm ready just to talk about it. There's definitely one movie that I definitely enjoyed over the other, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Double D, do you have a summary for this first one, the 1990 live-action one?
It's going to be a short, sweet one. I got one for you, though. 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles emerge from the shadows to protect New York City from a gang of criminal ninjas.
Yep, pretty short and concise.
Yeah, just like always.
Mm-hmm. So, just a couple like things about this movie that were pretty interesting. This movie was one of the highest-grossing independent films of all time. It made like $66 million in foreign box offices and $135 million here in the U.S. And this was like a joint venture between like a French production company, a German production company, and then like Jim Henson did all the animatronics and puppet work for it. So it's pretty crazy. And this movie itself was very kind of controversial in that the cartoon had come out before the movie, but the movie had been in development before the cartoon. So they were trying to beat the cartoon to market, but because the cartoon was already big, a bunch of kids wanted to see it. And this movie is pretty violent for a kids movie, and it's pretty dark.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of parents were really, really upset. And there was actually some different editing things that they did in the American version versus the European versions to kind of offset the violence. Jim Henson was really upset because he had no idea that the movie was going to be this violent when he agreed to make the puppets and the Ninja Turtles. So it's pretty interesting kind of history of this movie. Like, it was a huge, huge success. It was the most successful independent film of all time until very, very recently.
That's interesting. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, so what is the most successful independent film now?
I don't know what it is now.
For shame.
I didn't
Come on,
care,
Mike, do
but
your
I just know
research
that
here.
this was... I'm supposed to research this movie, not the other movies.
You can't just say it's
So-
number 2 and then not know number 1.
I mean, it might still be. I got this fact off of Wikipedia, and it said it was the most successful, but the page hadn't been edited in quite a long time, so I can't say for sure that it is or isn't. But I know, like, Lady Bird was really big, and we've had a bunch of other big independent film. Like, technically, Baby Driver was an independent film that got bought out by Sony for, stuff like that. So I can't imagine it is the most successful independent film of all time anymore. But I could be wrong.
You could be.
I could be.
It's not known to be often that you're wrong, Mike, because you're always right.
Most of the time.
Oh, wait, was that wrong?
So, Xavier, why don't you tell us the highlights that you felt were like the big moments of this movie, or what you thought was great or wasn't great?
Well, so I need to kind of set the scene here. When I saw this movie originally, I was probably like 10, and I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I am very happy to report that in the 20 plus intervening years, my tastes have significantly changed. Because when I watched this movie today, all I could think was that 10-year-old me had absolutely horrible taste in movies.
Oh, man.
Oh, man,
I
no.
still loved this movie.
It was a lovable movie, I thought.
I definitely, like, there's definitely some weird things to it, but it's a 90s movie. Obviously, it's going to be a little dated, but I hit that nostalgia right away. Like,
You know, I don't know. Coming back and looking at it after being away for 20 years just made me realize just how much of a specifically kids movie this is. Even if it has some weird violence stuff, even if it's got a lot of odd shit going on, really, this is a kids movie through and through. This is made for kids, and I couldn't get into it. It's not.
Oh, man.
It's just not my style of movie. I mean, there certainly were some highlights, and I'm a huge nerd for like really cool puppeteering, and I'm amazed at what they were able to do in those turtle suits. I mean, the fact that they're able to like do flips and all kinds of other stuff is fantastic. But oh god, this movie just the highlight was when it ended, because I could finally just be like, oh god, it's over. Finally, I can die now.
If you didn't like this one, I can't imagine you liked the reboot from 2014.
I have some words about it.
What about you, Double D? What are some highlights for you?
Oh man, I'm gotta say I'm like the opposite here, man. This was definitely a nostalgic moment for me watching this movie. Like, the suits were awesome, the action was okay, the Foot Clan was ridiculous. I thought the Shredder suit was pretty cool. It's weird, Michael Jackson-y vibe to it, but it was pretty cool in general. But yeah, it was. I mean, I agree. It was definitely a kids movie, but I felt like mentally I was in a kid's state watching it as well.
So for me, this is a movie. So like I said earlier, I owned these on VHS. I saw the second one, Secret of the Ooze, in theaters. I saw the third one, Turtles in Time, in theaters. I owned all three. The fourth one was an animated cartoon. I worked at the movie theater when it came out, and Ernie Reyes Jr. was there, so I got to meet Ernie Reyes Jr., who was he was the body of Leonardo in this one, and then he was actually in the second one as like a human character. So I actually met Ernie Reyes Jr. and got to talk to him about this movie once, which was cool. I owned these movies on DVD, and I own them on Blu-ray now. I got the little 4-pack. So I am a big fan of these movies, and when this movie came on and like it opens up, you see like the Twin Towers, and then I heard the music and the New Line Cinema thing. Like, I immediately got in. Like, I didn't take a ton of notes on this one because I was just watching it. I really enjoyed it. And like Xavier said, the costumes I think are amazing. And we're not going to spend too much time talking about the other ones, but the costumes actually got worse when they went from the second movie and then to the third movie. They got really bad. But here they like, obviously they look weird and they look like mutants and the faces are really simplified. But like the hands, the bodies, the turtle shells, like everything looked great. Like they looked real.
Oh yeah, I think on a visual level, this one really stands out, especially from other movies of the time, because there's something like very tangible about these guys in suits. That's one of the saving graces of that movie, at least in my opinion. Just because I think it's a real achievement, and like I said before, the fact that they're able to move around so much wearing these huge suits.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cool. I mean, there's just some things that I noticed like right away. Like the first time you see April O'Neil, she's wearing like a yellow raincoat to kind of tie into the comic books and the cartoon, because she wore like a yellow jumpsuit, and they actually made a yellow jumpsuit for this, and the actress who played April O'Neil was like, no, I'm not going to wear that. So they turned into a yellow raincoat for a scene just to kind of like have a nod to the comic books and the cartoon. But overall, man, I really like this movie. And like, just to name a few things they changed. So towards the end of the movie, or I guess it's like the middle of the movie, for the first time that they really fight the Foot and they get away, and the Asian dude who's like the number 2 to Shredder, his name is Tatsu.
Grunting all the time.
He's like grunting. He beats the shit out of that teenager in the locker room. In the novelization of this movie and in the European versions, that person died. And then here, to kind of like appease some of the parents, they had an ADR like, it's all right, he's breathing.
That's interesting.
But
it's weird.
Sam Rockwell's in this movie too.
Yeah, that pulled me out of the movie. That was a big hit to me. I was like, what the hell, Sam Rockwell?
Yeah, young Sam Rockwell.
Wee baby Sam Rockwell. He's so cute.
And like what you said earlier, Shredder, I thought his costume was rad. Like, it looked exactly like it did in like the comic books and stuff. I thought it was great. I thought he was great, and then Splinter looked great. I loved having Casey Jones in it. The mask was awesome, and I really liked how from the first movie you really got an idea of what all these different turtles were, with the exception, I'd say, of maybe Donatello. But Leonardo, you got that he was the leader and the level-headed one. Raph was the angry one. And Michelangelo was the party dude. Mm-hmm. And I was totally on board. Like, I think they did a great job kind of with the little bit of time they had, because this movie was barely over an hour. It was like an hour. It was like 94 minutes or something like that. So it was like very standard, typical short 90s movie. And they were able to get everybody their screen time. Everybody kind of knew what was going on. They had Casey Jones, April They had Casey Jones, April O'Neil, Shredder, Tatsu, the Foot. Like, they had so many characters in this movie, and they all got their time in the limelight.
Yeah, that is definitely something I will say for the '90s version, is that there's always something that each character has to do, which it's pretty strong screenwriting. It's pretty strong just from a technical perspective, because I mean, with so many characters running around, you got 4 turtles, you got Splinter, you got Shredder, you got April and Casey Jones and Dan, and all these other characters. The fact that they're able to cram all that into an hour and a half is pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And I think the choreography was pretty solid for a kids movie. Like, when Raph goes and he like fights those thugs, and he fights Casey Jones. Like, I think the Casey Jones part was probably the most silly part, where they're like doing sports puns and stuff like that. Was a little lame.
He's fighting in the trench coat.
Yeah. And I love the whole thing with the trench coat, where it's like he's so obviously like some sort of fucked up person. Like, even if you can't see his skin, like, he looks at the very least like some weird hunchback.
Totally.
Yeah.
Some weird pervy hunchback.
And then like when they get into the scene where Raph is like fighting a bunch of these guys on the roof by himself when they're above the antique store. And then they get into the antique store and they're like fighting like dozens and dozens of guys. Like, they're all fighting, but then they have, like Xavier mentioned, like the little kid moments. Like, they all stop to watch Michelangelo and Foot Dude do like a nunchuck contest. And like he also like jumps up on a bike that's hanging and like scissor kicks a bunch of people and then falls. So there's definitely some kid stuff, but the choreography when they're actually like fighting was really good.
I mean, especially for a early '90s movie like that, that was it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And then like it was dark too. Like there was like that one Foot Clan dude takes an axe, is trying to kill them with the axe. They're all like a bunch of Foot guys are like axing the floor to try to make the house collapse while they're in there. And then the other guy swings an axe, and one of the turtles like drops his head into a shell, and then he hits like a high power like voltage line and like dies. Like, he gets electrocuted, dies, and lights the place on fire. Raphael goes into a coma. And then like Splinter force ghosts and like, hey, like Splinter's got me, come and save me. Like, it got really dark. And then at the end of the movie, when the turtles finally face Splinter, like Splinter, like not Splinter, Shredder.
Yeah.
Shredder lies and it was like, he has a name, Splinter. I mean, had a name, and like lies and says he killed him. And then like enrages the turtles. Like, that scene was awesome. Like, the Shredder just like took on all 4 of those turtles, and the only one to land a strike was Leo. And then Splinter fucked him up.
On him.
And then Casey Jones commits cold, hard murder.
Yeah, that was something that I was genuinely impressed with. Actually, that entire chunk was, I felt, the best part of the movie. I mean, the cold-blooded murder was one thing, but the fact that you just basically have this guy in like an MC Hammer suit with a helmet on taking on 4 ninjas, I thought that was actually genuinely pretty cool. Whereas with, the 2014 one, he's just some dude in a power suit.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll get into that, but I agree. I had a lot of problems with the newer one, but like that rooftop scene was great. And then he, like, once the turtles are all defeated, Splinter shows up to rescue them, and for whatever reason, the Shredder just charges at him, and he just kind of like dodges him and like saves him, like he's holding on to him. And then he goes to like throw a knife at Splinter, so Splinter just lets go of the pole that he's holding on to. And he falls in the garbage truck, and Casey Jones just like, and like turns on the garbage truck, and he's like, "Whoops!" Like, he straight murdered somebody, and that's not okay.
But I mean, for me, that bothered me, that Splinter part of that rooftop scene, just because Shredder's like whooping on these turtles who have been shown to be awesome, and Shredder just gets enraged by this rat, and he just charges him and misses, and that I wanted more of a fight from Splinter and Shredder, but also when he's hanging from Splinter, he throws a knife at him. If he hits him with the knife, he's still gonna let him go. So is he planning to die here? Like, that bothered me.
I think it's just rage.
It just bothered me, Mike.
I agree, bro.
He doesn't seem to be a person who's very well in control of his emotions, I guess.
Right. and somehow he actually survives. Like in the second movie, he comes back. So that's crazy that he survived. But like overall, like yeah, there are some cheesy moments in this movie, and I agree with you, Double D, that it would have been better if the turtles kind of like saved the day. But overall, like just like it. I almost feel like I really want to redo this movie and on the other podcast Ruin My Childhood, so I can just gush about this movie more and then make Katrina annoyed having to watch this movie. But I thoroughly enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. I thought the fighting was great. I thought Raphael stole the show in this. Like Raphael's a great character. Like Leonardo, I almost said Leonardo DiCaprio. But Leonardo has always been my favorite turtle just because I liked the swords and like the blue color. But Raph is by far the most well-rounded character. He actually has some growth, and that emotion and his like grunts and his screams and his banter was great. Like overall, like I thought the turtles were great in this movie.
I'll have to agree with all of what you just said.
I mean, even though I didn't care for this movie in general, I will agree that they were at least, well developed, and each one sort of had something to do. So there's definitely that.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from. Like, this wasn't as big of a part of your childhood as it was for Double D and myself.
Mm-hmm.
If you only saw it like once when you're 10, and now obviously you don't have that emotional connection, like it is a kid's movie. So like I get where you're coming from, but for me, I'm able to forgive a lot and I still think this movie's better than a lot of kids movies that come out today.
Oh, for sure.
Well, yeah. But I will say that one of the things that I hated the most was the constant use of like awesome tubular cowabunga.
Radical, dude.
Because I mean, I get it, that's what the Ninja Turtles do, but at the same time, could you fucking tone it down just a little bit? Oh my god.
Well, the thing is,
that was mostly Mikey. Right.
The turtles are drastically different than they were in their original comic book. So the original comic that it's based off of is like, so this whole thing, the turtles got started off of a bet. Like this one guy is like, I can make a comic book about anything. So the guy's like, turtles. So he came up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And originally, like it was like a black and white comic book. And I think it only had red for like blood. And Splinter trained these turtles for the sole purpose of killing Shredder. Like, it is a super dark comic book, and then it kind of got rebooted and became what we know today. But it was originally shopped at Marvel, and Marvel they wanted it to be with Marvel, so they even set it up where the same accident that caused Daredevil actually caused the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then they ended up not getting bought. Like, Marvel didn't pick it up, so they had to kind of change that. And the ninjas were originally going to be the Hand, which are Daredevil ninja villains, and they changed it to the Foot. So it's kind of interesting. I'm like really into it, and I think we should just talk to the second one because I'm just going to keep talking about how great this movie is. So,
all right,
Xavier, you got a summary for the second one?
Yeah. Well, I got a short summary and a longer summary, and I honestly think the longer summary is a little better.
Then do the longer one.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to do, buddy.
I need to do a dramatic reading for this one because I don't think I'm doing it enough justice by doing the short one. So let me just.
Oh man.
Darkness has settled over New York City as Shredder and his evil Foot Clan have an iron grip on everything from the police to the politicians. The future is grim until four unlikely outcast brothers rise from the sewers and discover their destiny as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Turtles must work with fearless reporter April O'Neil and her cameraman Vern Fenwick to save the city and unravel Shredder's diabolical plan.
Yeah,
Clap.
I guess so.
So there,
Clap,
yeah.
Clap.
Like, if you read that one, like, it would fit for the original as well. It's a pretty generic one, but
It is
excellently
so
read.
fucking generic.
But expertly read. Like,
Oh, well, thank you. That means a
Amazing.
lot.
That was better than the movie.
yeah.
Just about anything is better than the movie. Reading the IMDb page is infinitely better than the movie because it means you don't have to see the movie.
So, I saw this movie in
I'm
theaters.
sorry.
I paid to see it.
Christ.
And so my thing with this was I was willing to give it like a shot. And a lot of people before the movie even came out were like, "Oh, it looks terrible. The turtles are terrible." They were like it seems like everyone wanted them to look like the original
Yeah, of
ones.
course.
And I'm okay with having a different design. Like, these are supposed to be mutants.
Right.
They should look a little weird.
I'm
So
okay
I
with
was
them
okay.
being huge. I mean, I just wanted a rubber suit.
I mean, obviously, I would have liked to have practical effects and everything. And there were like there was there are concept art out there of them being like a little bit more realistic looking. There was like some masks that were made, but ultimately they decided to do motion capture. And I think overall, like, they look pretty good. Like, they look like they're there. Like, their faces are a little weird, but like overall, like their skin tone, their shells, everything, like it looks like there's something there, except for the faces, I think are a little off. But I remember thinking, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. But the movie's bad, and like there's certain things that I think it did well, but overall it's just bad. And it had a really rocky production that I was keeping track of when this came out, because this is, I'm super into movies and tracking what's going on. And it had a really, really weird production history. It was produced by Michael Bay, not directed by him, but it was produced by him. So his company did all the stuff that he does with all the Michael Bay movies. But overall, man,
just make it look fuck awful.
Right.
Can I just say Megan Fox also was fucking terrible in this movie?
She's terrible in everything.
But this
Her
one
entire
especially.
upper face doesn't move
At
throughout
all.
the entire thing.
What did you do, Megan? What did you do?
I don't know. Because, like, at least when she was in, like, the 2 Transformers movies, she was very attractive. But she definitely had some plastic surgery done. She had some Botox or something.
She had all the Botox
just
done.
unnatural at this point.
Yeah.
She looked
So
worse
kind
than
of give
turtles.
you guys a little history on what this movie could have been and how, like, ultimately it is better than it could have been. So originally, there were gonna be aliens from a Dimension X, and they weren't gonna actually be mutant turtles. Like, they were just gonna be aliens. The other thing that was different, so William Fichtner, the guy who played Sax, the like CEO of that company,
Yep.
who was like working with Shredder, he was originally going to be Eric Schrader, and he was going to be Shredder. The script leaked online, and the internet had a fucking field day with it. So they went back to the drawing board, started from scratch, and it's a good thing. At least they were a little bit more true to the comic and the originals. But yeah, these guys were almost aliens.
That's
I can't say that could potentially even be worse than what was put on screen eventually, because my God, it's just you said it was bad, but I don't think bad actually covers the depth of just how horrendous this shit is.
I can tell you that it would have been worse because I've read the script.
oh man.
I've read the script.
I think you're a
It was
masochist.
Fucking terrible. Not even the whole thing, like only part of it leaked. But there's like this scene where like Vernon and April like go into this like facility, and it's like really weird and shitty, and it's awful. And I'm glad that they made some of the changes. And like I do want to say at least one positive thing. I actually think the personalities of the turtles were done actually better in this one than in the original. Like, I think the original did Michelangelo really well, Leonardo really well, and Raph really well, but I feel like Donatello didn't have anything. In this movie, I feel like Donatello had a place in the movie. He had his little tech stuff, he had his gadgets, he had trackers and everything like that. He was able to explain things. He was their tech guy, and then you had Michelangelo was still the party dude and the comic relief, and Raph was angry and emotional and raw, and Leo was, trying to be the leader and the level-headed and do the right thing. I think that this movie did a better job with the characterization. If the movie wasn't better, it definitely wasn't better, but I do think that they did a good job catching the spirit of the 4 turtles.
But they just weren't lovable at all.
No, they were horrendous. Especially
think the
Mikey.
problem
My
was-
God, he's a fucking creeper.
Yeah. But I mean, in the original one, Michelangelo was kind of a creeper too, and he was constantly like, ooh la la, and like being a
That's
creep
my
about
girlfriend.
April as well.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so when I was watching this movie, all I could think was that Mikey seemed like one of those guys who would date a high school freshman because women his age aren't impressed with his Hyundai accent or something.
So the thing that's weird about this movie is they tried to give the turtles more personality. So I kind of like that they all don't look exactly the same with just a different colored mask. And there were certain actors that they tried to kind of do. So Leonardo's face was based off Tom Hanks and Russell Crowe.
What?
I don't see that.
No.
Raphael was based off Russell Crowe and Clint Eastwood. I can kind of see the Clint Eastwood eyes on Raphael a little bit. Donatello is based off Leonard Nimoy. Don't really see it. Michelangelo is off of Bill Murray. I thought he looked more like Shrek.
They all look like Shrek.
Yep, I see the Shrek.
Yeah.
I can see Shrek.
And Splinter's face was based off a Japanese actor, Toshiro Mufene, I think. I don't know how to actually pronounce it. And, that alone. So the other thing that's weird about this movie is the 4 people who played the turtles. They originally had 4 actors. They did the motion cap. They did the voice work and everything. And then late into the movie, like a month and a half or so before the movie came out, Leonardo was replaced, just the voice, with Johnny Knoxville.
Because why not?
Right.
Johnny
So the
Knoxville.
actor did all that work, he did all the motion capture, did all the voice work, and then gets replaced by Johnny Knoxville.
Was there a reason for this?
I honestly don't know. I don't know if maybe his lines delivery wasn't good, but yeah, they replaced him. They also replaced Splinter. So Splinter was originally played by I can't remember his name, but he's a dwarf who's in Bad Santa and Seinfeld.
I'm looking at it right here. It's Danny Woodburn.
Yes, Danny Woodburn, and he did the some of the motion capture, and then was the voice, and then he got replaced, and then it was Tony Shalhoub. And Tony Shalhoub does kind of his normal monk voice, but kind of slips into in and out of a stereotypical Asian accent.
Yep.
And that was weird.
Pan-Asian thing that occasionally sounds British. It's really gross.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I really didn't like about this movie was, so in the original, Splinter was the pet of a martial artist, samurai kind of guy, and that's where he picked up the fighting, was watching, and he would, even as a rat, he was I guess a more intelligent rat, and was doing the kung fu moves, or not kung fu, but whatever ninjutsu or martial arts that he was doing. In this one, he realized the turtles would eventually want to leave, and that they needed to protect himself, and then he stumbled across a ninjutsu book and learned how to do ninjutsu. Fucking incredible, though. He was really good.
Yeah,
and he learned it from a book.
Can I also say he was pretty abusive to the turtles? I mean, he was just whooping on them with his tail when they first came in.
A little bit, but they're ninjas, so whatever.
I guess.
How did you guys feel about the action in this movie?
Yeah, it was a summer movie, I felt like, with the action.
It was garbage, Double D.
Yeah, summer movie.
No, the action was garbage. I asked you about the action.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the action
garbage
of a summer movie.
No, it was worse than that.
So I'm less interested in the action scenes than I am in the character of let's see what was his character's actually Vern Fenwick, the guy played by Will Arnett,
the actual creeper.
Yeah, so I'm interested in this character because as you watch this movie, you realize that the entire thing is just a framing device to explain just how broken a man this guy is. Because there's one scene where he gets a phone call from April while he's standing in his kitchen fixing some sort of food. And
can I tell you what that was? That food?
Oh, well, so I love this because it's just a pile of mustard on white bread with Parmesan cheese on it.
You know why? Can I tell you why?
Please.
So, he was in Arrested Development, and his character made the same sandwich. If you notice the music that was playing in the background, it was Careless Whisper by George Michael, George Michael was the name of the nephew in that show. So it was just a huge nod to Arrested Development.
Job.
Yep.
Right. Which I'm fine with that, except I haven't actually seen most of Arrested Development.
Oh, you should. It's
so
fantastic.
Just the idea that someone is actually putting these food items together and is then in the next scene trying to pull off a some sort of fedora. Just like it paints this picture of this character as being completely broken inside. Which, if I was Will Arnett in this movie, I would be completely fucking broken inside because I would know that my face would be associated with this.
I wrote down somewhere in my notes. Let's see if I can find it. Oh man, I wrote a note specifically about him.
Let's see, what do I have here? It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a portrait of a broken man. You're looking into the mirror, but you don't really see yourself, do you? All you see is your shame. Who did this to you? What is it? Drugs? Alcohol? Are you tormented by something in your past? Those are the notes that I have for this character. So, you know.
I found my note. It was just poor Will Arnett. He's great, but he does a lot of shitty movies.
A lot of them.
And he is, I mean, like, he is constantly doing different TV shows. He's been, like, the lead in, like, 20 different TV shows that don't get picked up. He divorced Amy Poehler recently. So, like, he is broken.
He's a broken man.
I feel bad. He's got to be. He seems sad. And I feel bad for him.
I don't.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Will. I don't
but,
feel
like,
bad.
He was a terrible character. Like, towards the end of the movie, and I want to get back to the action stuff, but in the end of the movie, they're, like, sliding down this hill, and April is, like, leaning out the window trying to take a photo, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then he, like, looks at her ass, and it's just, like, gratuitous ass shot that, like, for, like, 5 seconds, and he's like, no, keep doing that. Like, you want to make sure you get a shot of everything. And it's like, you fucking creep. You little chauvinistic fuck.
He was going to put on a fedora.
This is true. He was going to wear that fedora.
Yeah, he was. And then she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just a joke." So getting back to where I was chastising Double D about saying it was a
summer movie.
Action movie. The action was garbage. So I remember when I saw this movie the first time, leaving the theater, I was annoyed. I was like, the longest action scene was that snow scene where they're sliding down the hill, and it was stupid, and the physics didn't make sense. What really bothered me is when they were talking about the inspiration of this movie, they said that the kung fu and the action and the ninjutsu was going to be based off the Raid, that it was going to look and feel like the Raid, which is arguably the best martial arts movie to come out in decades. And so I'm expecting some crazy action, and then the first action scene at the docks, you see Raph jump like once, and then you see him like throw one guy, but then the rest of it, you're just seeing people flying. You see an entire shipping container go flying, which means these guys are super strong.
Mutants, even.
And you don't see anything. And like, it's a direct ripoff of Batman Begins. Like, it was shot and looked exactly like that scene in Batman Begins.
We're standing on top of the container in the shadows.
Yeah. And then when he goes and gets Falcone. And then in the second scene that you kind of see the turtles when they're rescuing all the hostages in the subway, it's the same thing. Like, you see one of them for a split second, but then you see a body go flying. And then you see another one, and then the body goes flying. Like, you don't see them hit anybody. You don't see them use their weapons. Like, the action was garbage until, like, they get into the sewer and the Foot Clan tracks April. And then they get ambushed, and the turtles get taken out pretty easily. And Splinter, like, I'd say the one good fight scene was Splinter versus Shredder. Like, Splinter was actually going to take on the Shredder. He was actually winning. But then the Shredder was a ripoff of the Silver Samurai in the Wolverine. Like, it looked exactly like that character in the Wolverine movie.
He was just Edward Scissorhands with a power suit.
Yeah, basically. And then at the end of the movie, the whole plot of the movie is they created like a virus that they're going to shoot into the air and then cure. That's the plot of Amazing Spider-Man. It's the exact same finale as Amazing Spider-Man.
It's a really original movie.
They stop it at the last second, and then the tower falls down. Like, there was not an original part of this movie at all. It was either identical to the original movie, and then everything else ripped off a different superhero movie.
Can you explain to me that part
annoying.
Where they were holding up the tower? If he had like almost zero chance, and then he just gets punched in the stomach.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that scene.
I don't get it either. I don't know. And like, Shredder had this like like he mentioned, like Xavier mentioned, it looked like Edward Scissorhands with the power suit. Like he just like extends out his hand, and like each finger had like a giant like blade attached to it, and he can throw them, and then like through magnets they came back, like, but no other metal would come back.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any
maybe
sense.
they just reversed the polarity on the whatever beam, and did some, I don't fucking know.
Yep.
Techno babble mumbo jumbo. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Like there is even a scene where I wrote down that one of the characters was just saying some sort of techno babble mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, Donatello.
Well, that, but there was also the part where like the bad guy is monologuing to the turtles when they're in their,
The containment
in their prison
units.
things.
Yeah.
And he just starts fucking monologuing and explaining the entire plan, and it's all just, none of it makes any sense. It's just nonsense words.
Yeah. Oh
He
yeah, I'm gonna
might as
release
well have
this
just
virus
said,
and sell the
Hey,
antidote.
have you seen Amazing Spider-Man? I'm doing that. Because that's what he did. And the thing about this, and then Raph actually fought Shredder, and this kind of bothered me because Raph kind of held on Shredder for quite a while on his own.
Yep.
And then, like, the ending was exactly the same, except Splinter didn't come. So the ending, they all try to take on Shredder one by one. It doesn't work, and then they use the power of teamwork to overcome him.
Played Buck.
And then Shredder is just like, I'm just going to destroy the building, and, like, I'll still win kind of thing.
He just turned his back on him. Like, I'm done with this fight. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
destroy
he
this
just
thing now.
left Raph, and then the others, like April and Neo, gave them adrenaline, and they had like all their blood drained out of them. But adrenaline with no blood is not going to help you. But then they get super strength, and you're able to break through this unbreakable glass,
Which just shatters like glass.
right?
When
And how did they already have these chambers made when they didn't know anything about the turtles?
it was a quick production.
No.
Well,
And the other
actually,
problem I had with this. Go ahead,
I
Xavier.
have some thoughts on that as well, because they do some pretty crazy things with their timelines and their moving between places.
The
'cause
helicopter and the truck.
Well, yeah, the helicopter and the truck. So when they're on the
Makes no
truck
sense.
going down the hill and stuff, somebody says, we've got 53 seconds until we hit the bottom of this slope. And then almost immediately after that, they say, "Oh, the guys in the helicopter are 20 miles outside of New York City." 53 seconds later, or say a minute later, which is when the helicopter was supposed to have arrived, because they say, the helicopter's arrived there. That helicopter would have to be going 1,200 miles per hour.
Right. Well, and also,
Also,
there's no mountain that close.
Yeah, there's no
To
fucking
New
mountains
York.
that close to New York. And also, when they get down to whatever maintenance hatch is down at the bottom and they start surfing through these sewers or something, are we really expected to believe that they're going 20 miles through sewers just surfing like that?
And like those sewers had huge gaps where they like went flying like 100 feet and then landed in another tunnel.
Right. It's like something from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where you have all this completely fucking unbelievable shit, except this one is in the middle of goddamn New York.
Well, the other problem that I had with this movie is it kind of had like the same problem that the Star Wars prequels had, is that it shrunk the universe. So in this version, they were lab experiments, and April's dad was working on them. April named them as children. Splinter, as a rat, remembers all this and explains everything. So basically, in a nutshell, Eric Sachs was originally supposed to be, like I said earlier, Shredder, and then he was going to be Shredder, and then everyone's like, you can't whitewash Shredder. You need to have a Japanese man as Shredder. So they went back and fixed that. But it turns out he was, like, adopted by Shredder and made this corporation. And, like, his whole plan is they're going to make a virus, and then they're going to produce the cure, and then they're going to be, and I quote, stupid rich. I mean, really stupid rich. And he's already a billionaire. Like, how much more money do you need? And you're going to kill millions of people. But then, like, you find out that April's dad died committing arson to prevent this from happening, like, 15 years prior. But then you find out that April rescued the turtles. What fucking father brings their daughter to an arson?
Oh, you know what my favorite part about that is? Later on, the bad guy Sax, he's shooting his pistol at April and Vern, and he says something about shooting or killing her dad.
And it took way less bullets.
Yeah, and it took way less bullets. So did he die in a fire? Was he shot to death? Also, April, he is shooting at you. How do you not believe that this man killed your father? He's shooting actual bullets towards you right now.
Well, April's stupid. She also said she went to 4 years of journalism school. Journalism school is not a thing. You go to school and get a degree in journalism, but they don't have like special schools specifically for journalism, like medical school.
Maybe in
or
Universe
law school.
X they do. Like
maybe they
yeah.
No. And like the Foot Clan in this isn't ninjas. They should be ninjas.
Yeah,
honestly,
They're just like regular soldiers with guns.
honestly,
And then you find out the turtles are bulletproof.
Oh, that scene where one of them pops all the bullets out of his chest in slow-mo.
After
Yeah,
his
Raphael
shell was cracked.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense. I loved that.
No, it didn't make any sense, Xavier. He also jumps through a van like it's made out of paper.
Yes,
Pops
yes.
out of it.
And like he was shown to be able to lift a shipping container.
Yeah.
Yet most of these soldiers that he's fighting can take more than one hit from these turtles.
Yep.
And they're also able to slingshot themselves with extreme velocity just by twirling each other around on a stick and flip in the midair and hit an armored van or an armored Humvee and make it crumple.
With their
Yet these guys
shells.
were able to be taken out by like one guy in an Iron Man suit.
Yeah. So I just have to mention the last really egregious thing that I thought this movie did. And I don't know if I'm the only one who thought of this. It could just be something stupid that it's just me being a moron. But so they're in this elevator, right? They're going up 50, however many floors.
Beatboxing.
And they're beatboxing in the elevator. They're having a good time. And earlier in the movie, it was mentioned that they were box turtles. And that was the perfect opportunity to make a really terrible joke and redeem that scene about them being beatboxing box turtles. And they fucking wasted it. They fucking wasted it, you guys.
Oh, that would have been a great pun. Oh, man. I didn't pick up on that. That's great, man. Oh, man.
Just tugs at my heartstrings.
All around.
Just to kind of talk about some of the nods that they had. So in this one, April wore a yellow leather jacket the entire movie. There's also a nod to the original film. So there's a point where they're like throw a pizza in the air and Leonardo like slices it up and a slice of pizza lands on Splinter's head.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in the original one as well. And that's really all the positive things I can say about this movie, that it had a few lots. I do think the Splinter fight was pretty spectacular. But the problem is they did the same thing that they did in another thing they ripped off, Star Trek Into Darkness, having Khan's magic blood. So these turtles have magic blood that apparently can just heal anything.
Yes,
that's the whole premise. Is Stax wants that,
and that's how easily they got the green mutagen out of his blood so quickly.
Right, and then they're just inject that into Splinter so he can heal because he like died, and then they like bring him back.
But how did they get it? The mutagen was broken on Shredder.
No, there was more than one vial, I think. I don't know.
There was only the one.
Maybe they scooped just a little. Oh, no, you're right. They scooped just a little bit. But the thing is, doesn't Splinter have the mutagen in his body already?
Yeah.
Because he's a mutant too?
Why are you expecting this to make sense, though?
I guess that's a very valid point.
The key premise to it doesn't make sense, and then it has, like, world-breaking, super healing powers. It doesn't make sense. But I will say that the turtles, I think, were well done. I think they each had their distinct personalities. I'll give them that. Like, I think there was premise. Like, if you took those characters and put them in a better movie, like, you could, there wasn't even the design. Like, you could have taken the same design, the same characters, and moved them into a different movie, and I think it would have been fine. And like, they did an animated movie in like 2007, 2008 that is actually really good. That I would say is better than even the first one, actually. But, oh man, this was rough to watch.
It was really, really hard, and I had to take multiple breaks while I was watching it.
I can do you one worse, bro. I paid for this movie and now own it.
Oh. Oh,
because
no.
I could not get, I couldn't find anywhere for free. And if I can't find it for free, I pay for it on Amazon. I normally rent it. But in this case, the rental was $3.99, and then I was like, oh, normally a lot of the movies we've covered, the rental's $3.99, and to buy it's like $15 for a digital copy. The rental was $3.99, but it was to own it was $5.99. I'm like, I might as well spend the $2 more just in case I ever watch this again. I wasted that $2 because I will never watch this again.
Oh, man.
And like, I felt like this movie did well enough to do a sequel.
Yep.
And I paid to see the sequel.
Why?
Because it had Bebop and Rocksteady in it.
What? No.
And I
No.
had to see Bebop and Rocksteady.
You are giving these people monetary reasons to do these kinds of
But
bad things.
I
again.
will tell you what I did to kind of justify it, because I didn't want to give them money. I really didn't. I really wanted to go see, what movie was it? Katrina was doing like a YouTube video or doing something, and I needed to be out of the house for a few hours. So I did a double feature. But it just happened to be like I really wanted to go see, oh my God, this movie was even worse. The Independence Day sequel that came out a couple years ago. Right?
Why do
But
you
there
hate
wasn't one
yourself
starting
so
I
much?
told you he was a
until like
masochist.
1 o'clock. Right? So I went and saw this one, and then I walked into that one. And it
Just
was
a bad
awful.
day
It was a
for you,
terrible
Mike.
day. I watched 2 really shitty movies back to back.
Oh my God. I would need to take a shower after that.
Right. And then I've got one last thing I kind of want to talk about. So the original movie, I won a bet on the internet. Well, not a bet, but I won an argument on the internet about the first movie. So in that movie, there's a scene where they like get pizza ordered, and then they hassle the delivery man to give him a discount because they're 3 minutes late, and he had him deliver it to the sewer, like under like through a sewer grate, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
So online, when this newer movie came out and people were talking about the old one, they're like, oh yeah, I loved Pizza Hut pizza because, this scene. And I'm like, that was Domino's in the movie. And then he's like, no, you're an idiot. He was like calling every name in the book, telling me I'm a fucking idiot and all the things you get on the internet. And I was like, it's Domino's. And like, I went and put in my Blu-ray, I filmed it, uploaded it to YouTube, and then presented it. And like, the guy's like, oh, you're right. But I can get where his confusion was, because when this movie came
It
out,
was very Pizza Hut.
even though it had Domino's in it, Pizza Hut, after the movie came out, had a mass advertising thing featuring the Ninja Turtles. So even though Domino's was in the movie, they did appear in Pizza Hut commercials around the time the movie was in theaters.
You're not supposed to make concessions like that on the internet, Michael.
Oh,
you're
I didn't make
supposed
that concession at the time.
Oh, well, okay, never mind.
I have a
You're
question for you,
forgiven.
Mike. Does anyone really win an argument on the internet?
Yeah, I did. He
No,
conceded
but
and was like, I was right.
You just had an argument on the internet, and I don't think that's a win.
No, but I did win.
No. See,
I get what he's saying.
it's the
fact
it's
that I
the
had an
you
argument
played
on the
yourself.
internet already lost. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Fuck you, Double D.
Whoever wins, you lose.
You're all losers.
Fuck you
here.
both.
That argument made you lose.
I don't have anything else to talk about. I thoroughly enjoyed the first movie, but I guess we got to answer the question.
No.
Was this remake necessary?
No.
No.
This,
I agree.
This specific remake, or just the fact that a TMNT movie could have been remade?
This specific one, I'm going to say no, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to have a new one. Like, if they did what they promised, like, had, like, a raid style thing, like, I would love to have, like, a PG-13, like, a hard PG-13 one, where, like, it is violent, and they are going after Shredder. Like, I would love to have, like, a darker Ninja Turtles movie.
Can I
Oh,
just
yeah.
say, in both of these movies, there was a lot less stabbing than I thought there would be, since there's swords and size and.
So the thing is, in the first movie, they actually do hit each other. Like, you see them hit people with the, like, they don't really kill, but you actually do see them swing the swords. Like, you see him Leo swing the sword, and then you see bodies go down. You don't see blood, you don't see stabbing, but you see slashing. So it does appear that they kill a couple people in the original one. But if you watch the second one, Secret of the Ooze and Turtles in Time, because this movie got so much backlash for the violence, you don't ever actually see them make contact with a person. Like, they basically, like, throw people into the environment. They'll, like, throw the swords into, like, a ceiling and then, like, hang on the sword and, like, kick somebody, but or they'll like hit somebody, like they'll hit something in the environment, and then the environment hits the person.
Did they ever
Like, it
explain
gets
where
way
they got
worse.
this great inventory of weapons?
No, I mean, is it really that great of an inventory? They each have one set of weapons.
Not in the second one. Splinter's got like this whole room of weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've,
that's
they've
true.
got an entire wall made out of.
Yeah,
like,
where did they get this stuff, and how do they pay for pizza?
I don't know, man. They must be thieves.
Well, I know I think they do it in the sequel to this one. If not the sequel, I know for a fact they do it in the animated one, which the animated one is a sequel to the original one. The animated one, Donatello does do like tech support over the phone. And then there's also Michelangelo puts on like a fake Ninja Turtle like foam helmet and then does birthday parties as the Ninja Turtles. But other than that, yeah, I don't know how they get their money.
Sorry, these were just things that were bothering me the entire movie.
I hated the new one. I hated it, and the sad thing, I hated it when I originally saw it, and I was really angry. I thought the action was terrible. I thought the acting was terrible. And then this time around, I thought it was better than I originally thought it was going to be, but it was still awful.
Yep.
And the sequel's even worse.
I am amazed that you were able to stomach seeing it for a second time.
I was really hoping that I was just really hard on it and going into it with zero expectations, I might come out of it liking it a little bit more.
Nope.
No.
No.
It was just like the Point Break episode. I went into the Point Break episode thinking that the second one might be better a second viewing. It wasn't.
You watched the sequel or you watched the remake of Point Break more than
Not
once.
since the episode.
But you
Not
still
since we
watched.
recorded.
You subjected yourself to that.
For the sake of the podcast, yes.
Oh, you have absolutely the worst judgment in everything.
Well,
how do
for
you
the sake of
live?
the
I'm telling
podcast,
you, man,
I had
he's a
to do it. I
masochist.
wanted to watch I wanted to watch Point Break again. I fucking love the Keanu Reeves one. I wanted to watch it and talk about it with my friends.
Utah.
I want to talk about it with my buddies Xavier and Dustin. Does that make me a bad person?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely. I am not worth that.
So before we kind of wrap up the episode, I do want to kind of go around and just kind of talk about the year of the episode. Kind of, are there any highlights? Obviously, Xavier, you kind of left the show fairly early, but have you gone back through and watched any of the other movies that you watched before for the podcast, or are there any other remakes or stuff that you've watched, or what are your favorite moments from the podcast in the first year?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't actually watch movies as much as you do, certainly. So I'm not sure that I can really contribute too much along those lines. I also have found that if I watch a remake, it has to have some pretty fucking stunning reviews before I'll actually put in the effort. Because aside from something like this, I have zero reason to waste my time with bad remakes of movies.
Right. And then what about any highlights? So for the episodes that you remember doing, what was your favorite episode that you did?
Well, I did like the Point Break episode, now that you mention it, just because I thought both of those movies were so incredibly absurd that I couldn't help but think, wow, this is a unique experience that I'm living through right now.
Right. So talking about that, so I'm actually putting together a best of episode and taking clips from like a bunch of episodes, and I was going through and just kind of skimming all the episodes and like looking at it for Audacity and seeing like the big waves where like I can recognize laughter. But I actually went through and re-listened to the entire Point Break episode, and it was great. It was hilarious. Like Xavier really did not understand why Dustin and I loved the original so much. He was making fun of the premise, and me and Dustin were just merciless when we were making fun of him, and it was a really fun episode. I've actually gone back since that episode. I've watched Point Break, the original one, twice in the last year after the episode. So I've watched that movie 3 times in the last year. I love that movie. Double D, what about you? What are some highlights of the podcast? Like, what are some fond memories you have? Your favorite movie we covered?
RoboCop for sure. I mean, the guest starring on the RoboCop was everything for me. But actually, the whole Halloween series we did, those 4 movies, that was a lot of fun for me. Those were actually enjoyable movies to watch both sides of.
Yeah, I agree. Like, actually, a lot of the Halloween ones, we ended up liking both sets.
Yeah,
and
which is
almost
cool.
all of them.
Which is rare.
Like Carrie, they were both fantastic. I think we all pretty much liked both Ghostbusters. You
Cape
weren't in the
Fear.
Dawn of the Dead one. And watching the Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty fun, too. Like, the newer one was awful, but it was fun. Like, it was really bad.
So bad.
And then just going back through for me, like, I have the unique experience in that I do all the editing and the social media, and like I gotta say, I love when people comment on Instagram or Twitter. I gotta say, like, there's a podcast community out there, and it's like you can get pretty close to it. I've made some friends in the podcast community. All the guys on Get to the Podcast, we've had 2 of the 3 guys from Get to the Podcast on this show, and I talk to them almost every day on Instagram and Twitter, and I make fun of them. I listen to all their episodes, and like that's not an experience I would have had without doing the podcast. Since we've started, I've had 2 different friends in my personal life like email me or call me. Like I had a friend that I went to high school with that I haven't talked to in years email me and Instagram direct message me and said, man, like you've inspired me to do my own podcast. His name is Garrett Bazio, and he actually started a construction based podcast. Cool. So like just the support that we've got from friends, family, the internet, like we're by no means a large podcast, but it's been a incredible experience just seeing something artistic. I've never been an artistic person. I suck at drawing. I can't paint. I'm not great with my hands. Like I'm not an artistic person, but having this creative outlet and seeing people enjoy it and editing these like little clips, like I love making those little teasers for the episodes that I put on Instagram and Twitter. So that's been pretty great. And then that Point Break episode, I still think that's hilarious. I love that one. The Cape Fear episode, which was Double D's first episode officially as a host, like I was really worried about that episode because it's a really dark subject matter movie, and it was a blast. And like that's not a movie that I would have ever watched. Like I've watched a bunch of movies that I probably wouldn't have watched. Doing Scarface, the Xavier picked that one, and like that was a really fun movie to talk about. It was absurd. So I've had a blast this last year doing this podcast. I'm looking forward to doing more. I'm looking forward to Dustin coming back because he's a blast. He's great for having sound bites. Every episode he's in, we're able to have some pretty great teasers. But I really had a blast, and I'm going to be making a best of episode. I'm having a lot of fun making it. It's really hard for me to like edit this thing down, so it's not going to be like 3 hours. But I just want to thank everybody who's been a fan of the show and has been listening for this year. We've had ups and downs. Like we had an issue with Ruin My Childhood with like a different podcast, but I don't really want to go into that. But then we've had some episodes that are just like blown up, and then we have like random episodes that I think are going to be big that aren't. But it's just like you never really know what's going to happen. I actually had one of the bobsledders from the original Jamaican bobsled team. We just did a Cool Runnings episode on our other podcast, Ruin My Childhood, which is we celebrate our year for that one in about a month. Like contact us on Instagram, which is crazy. So like all these different things that I would have never had happen. So I just want to say it's a blast. Thank you for everyone who's listened and supported the show. Thank you for all of our fans on Patreon who's like kicked in a couple bucks and helped us out. It's just been a great experience, and it feels great getting that validity that, we are funny, I guess. Like everyone who listens to the show tells me that they think we're funny, and like it's awesome. I really appreciate that. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Please check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can do that on patreon.com/MDX. Oh, excuse me, I just burped a little bit. You can do that on patreon.com/MDXpods if you want to just throw a couple bucks our way and support the show. And also you can go to audibletrials.com/MDXpods if you want a free book and support us that way. Other than that, thank you guys for listening. And Xavier, thank you so much for coming back on. You are welcome at any time. If you ever want to do another episode, just hit us up and we'll have you on right away. And it was a really great year, and I'm glad we were able to get you back on, bud.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
No problem. And once again, we will be linking everything that Xavier was talking about. If you want to kind of plug your Dungeons and Devs one more time real quick, I'll make sure we link everything in the podcast description below.
Yeah, certainly. So Dungeons and Devs, it's just a little personal project I have where I get game developers together from various walks of life in the game dev community and industry, and we get together, we talk about game development and the challenges thereof, and then we just play some Dungeons and Dragons for a few hours. It's a lot of fun. And I try to get a really diverse cast on there. So if you're listening to this and you're in game dev, just look up Dungeons and Devs.
Excellent. And you're on Twitter, YouTube as well?
Yeah, the show right now is on YouTube. I'm planning to take it to sort of like podcasting platforms later on this year as well, but just YouTube for now.
Cool.
Excellent. So everyone, check that out. Xavier, friend of the show, original host, founding member of MDXpods. He is the X of MDXpods. And thank you so much for being on, man. Really appreciate you coming out of retirement for an episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Other than that, thanks for listening. Double, do you have anything else before we wrap up?
Cowabunga, dudes.
Cowabunga, dude. I love being a turtle. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.
Later.
Bye.